All right, how you guys doing, senior home business community? This is Brittany on my right, maybe your left. I don't know what your TV is showing, and I'm here, Matt from California, and we're talking about, as always, the senior placement business. Brittany, we do talk about entrepreneurship, but obviously, we talk about what we do. It's just easier, right? I mean, how can we have 700 plus videos on this channel and talking about the same thing? It's just because we don't have to sit around and chat GBT it and Google it and ask others and do additional research. We do all that kind of stuff. We're going to bring you some research today on today's topic that you're on to talk about cameras and senior living, but we also talk about from our experience. And so you're going to hear from us today some of our own experience when we talk about cameras and senior living. Now, if you want to know more about what we do, you can also drop down and click the link and schedule a 15-minute consultation with me. I'll talk to you. It's funny, Brittany, sometimes when people call me, not all the time, but when they do and they schedule an appointment, they go, I can't believe it's you. And I'm like, that's wild. It blows me away. And I'm like, you realize I'm not the Matt Stafford, right? The Rams quarterback. I'm just some generic Matt Stafford in California. But that is funny, and I'm very humbled by that, and really appreciate talking to you guys. So if you want to get on my calendar, you can do that. If you want to know more about the Senior Placement Institute, that'd be a way to do it. Or you can drop down, watch a free webinar. You can, watch a $29.99 3-day workshop, all that good stuff. Learn about TSL. Our technology, because there's 3 ways to do this business: traditional, online, and technology. So let's get into the video, why you came. We're going to show you a couple articles today. We'll show you an actual list of different states. So it's just not in California, not just information in Texas and Missouri where Brittany serves seniors, but we're going to look at a number of different states across the country and talking about cameras and senior living, safety, upgrade, or privacy nightmare. Brittany, I can see both sides of it. There is a safety upgrade to this, and we're going to talk about in just a few seconds the 5 benefits of installing cameras. And then we're going to drop down into maybe a little bit of the liability, some of the concerns that communities and or family members have. But cameras and senior living, I can see both sides of it. And so you're probably going to hear in the flexion of my voice today, and we talk, that when we're talking about benefits, I'm gun-ho, bang, 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 ready to go with it, because we are more of an advocate for seniors than we are senior placement agents. And then we get to the other side of concerns. In all fairness, I do see that side of it as well. And so if somebody could figure this out and appease both groups of people, man, it might be $1 billion idea. I don't know. How can we get transparency in senior living communities and still keep the privacy element intact, the dignity and everything else, right? So the first one, Brittany, what do you think about it? Increase resident safety. That'd be one of the benefits, right? Benefits of installing cameras in senior living communities, increase resident safety. How in the world would that be a thing that would increase some safety as far as cameras? Outside of stating the obvious, but I know, you got any experience with that? We heard that was a safety deal where community actually had a camera and it helped the senior being safe.
Yeah, I think everything is circumstantial, but I think a lot of times there's a lot of blind spots in communities where seniors can be, whether they're, I know we've all been assisted living. If you haven't, sometimes you don't see caregivers constantly down the hall, or a bunch of common areas or areas in rooms where maybe a caregiver doesn't have eyes on them all the time. So I think just having more eyes on them will increase the resident safety in general. A lot of the little hidden areas in the community, especially if it's memory care or somewhere that has a little bit of cognitive decline, if that resident has that. I just think in general, having eyes on them more, if they're getting into something they shouldn't, if they are in a hallway where there's rugs or whatever, if there's just an area that probably is going to be unsafe for them. I have heard where there's cameras in a community where some of the residents would sneak into the kitchen at night. It was a common thing. And They had cameras in the kitchen. It was some residents with cognitive decline, and it helped the caregivers, because there are less caregivers at night, be able to know when those residents were going in the kitchen. And there was 2 little ladies, and they would get like peanut butter. I don't remember what it was, but it was so funny. So the reason that this community would justify their cameras is because at night, less staff, they can have, it was a baby monitor almost, where they would monitor the common areas. So things like that, I think really just more eyes on them. Obviously stating the obvious is better, but I think it's almost the places we don't think about, and the common areas and parts in their room where they might have a fall risk. Or I know that you can't have them in the bathroom, but having cameras near that opening of the bathroom is important too. So I have a lot of communities that have them. So I do think this can increase resident safety, just having more eyes.
Yeah, faster response, right? I mean, you see it on camera, you can run there. I mean, if you have to wait just for somebody to tell somebody, well, that's going to take some time. If they fall, let's say, and no one's around, then they're at the mercy of someone finding them, right? And we had that issue at the community I worked for years ago, where evidently somebody was on the floor for overnight. And we don't know when they fell. We assume somewhere around midnight, something like that. Maybe tried to get up to go to the restroom, and they were on the floor the entire evening up until morning when the caregiver went and checked up on the residents and made their rounds. And so I know we got pendants and things like that, and sometimes pendants don't work. I know in our community, we were forever having issues with batteries, and that was one of the issues with that particular lady that fell, is the battery evidently was dead and the pendant didn't work. And so that was the issue with the community. They're like, we just push the pendant next time. And like, I was pushing it. And then they tested it, and of course the pendant didn't work. So yeah, I'm a firm believer in this. It does create some resident safety. And then also kind of on the flip side of just the safety, not just them falling, but it could be a deterrence of abuse or neglect. I hate talking about this because you and I both, I know, love and adore seniors. We do anything for them. We've got, older ones in our family, but just beyond that, you and I have helped thousands of seniors get placed into communities. I hate to even talk about it, but I have had experience, even my own families, that their loved ones got abused. And it was, and I think of this one particular community. It was actually a care home. They own like 8 of them. And I've had 2 abuse situations over the years. Haven't used that care home in about 3.5, 4 years because of the intel that I'm receiving. Because we teach the senior placements too, right, Brittany, that there's multiple ways to assess a community, the 3-step qualification process. And one way is to have family intel. And when I get negative reviews ongoing from the same community, it causes me to pause. It causes me to be concerned. It causes me to reflect. Would I have my own mom or dad go to that community? And the 2 abuse situations could everything from one, they gave the senior a haircut like me, completely bald, but he wasn't bald. And the wife did not want him bald. And they just did it for, it was easier to give him a shower, a bath, things like that, without getting the consent from the wife. The other one was outright abuse, bruises on the arm, bruises up here by the eye. Lady obviously got beat up. She would actually tell her daughter that, ongoingly until she passed away, she'd always reflect on the day she got beat up. And this particular community had cameras all over the place. And that was a selling point for people that walked in. Hey, we're transparent here. We got great care. We do all these different things. And we got cameras everywhere. So if anything should be of concern to you, we can pick it up on camera and correct it. Well, each of these 2 issues, the cameras didn't work. The cameras were not directed in that area. They just could not pick it up. It was amazing. And so, and I actually saw pictures of this particular lady, met with the family over lunch, and expressed my, not condolences of her because she was still alive at the time, but just my regret of all what had happened. And they weren't mad at me whatsoever, but they just thought I would benefit me going forward to see this. And they actually showed me pictures of all of that. So it could be deterrence of abuse and neglect, and then also legal protection, right? This could actually protect the community. And this is where I think the community should try to work to solve, because we're going to get some of the concerns. And again, I understand both sides of it. I know you do too, Brittany, but the legal protection of it, man, communities, I know from hearing things in the community, in this industry, throughout the nation, we've got students in 35 different states. So I hear a lot of things, and I know there's, in any given situation, there's 2 sides of the story, right? I get that. And it's not always abuse. It's not always the caregiver doing something bad. There might be something that's fabricated, something that's made up, right? And so this will protect you. Brittany, how would you see that? Is this could be a protection for communities?
I think so. I think what I see a lot of is seniors, maybe if they do have some dementia or Alzheimer's, say things that might not always be true. Yeah. So maybe they're saying, here's a really common one, like, I'm not getting lunch. They're not feeding me. They are coming in at 3 a.m. and waking me up. Like, it's not that they're fibbing, it's the disease, and they might just not understand where they're at, or they might be severely confused. Sometimes families don't understand, or maybe a little bit of denial that their loved one is telling some stories that aren't exactly all the way true. So in this case, it could protect the family, or sorry, the community, and also show the family that they are doing the care that they say they're doing. So I hear a lot of, I'm not eating, they're coming in at 3 a.m. and waking me up and pulling me out of bed, those type of things. So this can prove to the family they're doing their job. And maybe mom or dad is just confused, not aware of their surroundings, having nightmares, hallucinations, whatever that is. I see that being very common. I think this could help a lot, clear up a lot of that. Because a lot of the misconception is, oh my gosh, they're abusing my loved one. Oh my gosh, they're not getting taken care of. And sometimes they really are. Like a lot of the times they really are getting cared for.
Yeah, most definitely. And, look at some of these. This is a huge topic, Brittany, especially in 2025, and dealing with cameras, transparency and all that. Like here's an article here. It deals with, many different states. We're going to go over in just a second, the states that you're allowed for families to put up cameras and things like that. And there's 17 to be exact right now in 2025. But this article here, goes through, these different states are talking about granny cam laws and things like that. Pennsylvania lawmakers proposing a bill. This was back in January, just of this year. So just several months ago. And you look down, the bill takes in this name, Esther Law, a law passed in 2022 in Ohio, named after Esther Piskor. I guess that's how you pronounce her name, a state resident whose abuse was captured on a surveillance camera set up in a room by her son. So her son just literally put a camera in there. I'm sure it was hidden, could be a teddy bear cam or something like that, and picked up abuse. And it's just, that's just kind of a thing where it's going on. And you take, let's say this one right here. Let's see if I can show this one. Is that the same one? Yeah, it's the same one. There's another article over here that if we get to it, but it's just basically talking about the same thing, but it goes through in the state of Maryland, I believe it is. It's talking about surveillance and things like that as the other article. So it's just, there's a lot of attention, to say the least, on this particular issue, because you got a lot of families that are concerned about their loved ones going into a community, and are they truly being cared for? Are they truly being cared for like the family would take care of them? And the community's got to have concerns, right? Just like with the legal protection. Whistleblowers or people making something up, or like you said, with a condition that they might not be making it up. It's just something they perceive to happen or whatever. Another thing I think would be great, would be a benefit for communities, is operational oversight. This would be cool. Now, I'm not sure, Brittany, you can speak to this. I'm not sure how the caregivers would take this, because I don't know about you, but when I had a 9-to-5 job back in the day, I didn't like to be micromanaged. And I don't know if too many people like to be micromanaged. And I think caregivers, staff members could perceive cameras ongoingly in their area of workplace being a thing of micromanagement. What's your thoughts on that?
Agreed. Yeah. I think it would be invasion of privacy, maybe. My states, I know we'll go over it, that I work in do have the camera where you are allowed to have the camera in the assisted living, memory care, even nursing homes. I have heard the comments that it's a little micromanaging, and but I do think from the operational oversight standpoint, I think it's huge. I think a lot of these large communities have no idea from a even corporate standpoint or large kind of regional standpoint. It all comes down from, the tree, right? The apple doesn't fall far. I think a lot of them don't have a clue what's going on in these buildings, or not enough, should I say. So I think being able to have more oversight on the caregivers on everything from like a tour to the admissions to the care to everything you possibly think of, to family interaction. I'm not talking just caregivers, executive directors, director of nursing, even your leadership roles. I think it'd be really nice for the community to get to see more than they can just see walking through. I think it's really important you see daily operations, and I think it would be a good way to get more oversight than you would ever be able to get. But however, it's going to create a little bit of issue with the staff. There's no doubt. Even on a leadership level, I don't know how they would feel about it.
Yeah. I think of like incident documentation, like the lady that fell, or, the community I used to work for, if there was a camera maybe there, they would know exactly when she fell. And then the flip side of that too, that one of the benefits, if they would have seen that and someone was watching the monitor, I think about cameras. In my own house, I got 3 cameras rolling around the back side of the house, front of the house. We use it primarily in our residence people for safety, right? We want to see who's approaching the house, who's in the backyard, if they're not supposed to be, when we're out of town, things like that. I remember we first moved here, Brittany, a year ago. We laid sod all in the back, right? We laid new grass and all that stuff, and the people were telling us that it should not be walked on for like 3 weeks, right? Well, we're out of town, and our pool guy comes. Well, he's permitted to come back here, and he knew what to do. He stayed on the sidewalk in the backyard, going all around the property to get to the pool. Well, the guy down the street that I hadn't met until I got home, I saw him on camera. He chased my pool guy because he wanted the pool guy. So he just took the liberty to go right through my backyard, trampled all over the grass to get to the pool guy. So when I got home, I kindly went down there and told him, I was like, "Man, what are you doing trampling on my grass, dude?" He's, "Oh, I was just trying. I understand. You didn't know." I said, "But, the grass just got laid. I'm trying to keep people off of it, my own grandbabies and family, stuff like that. But we use it for safety. And I think it would be good for communities. This could be a benefit if it's kind of sold right, because to your point about the micromanagement kind of thing. And, would caregivers be second guessing themselves? Would they be like, well, I would normally position the senior this way, but, the voice, okay, because there's nothing. You got cameras, right? And you also got the audio of the camera. If you have cameras with no audio, things can be misinterpreted, right? The audio, the combination of the two, I think brings context. If you don't have the audio, you might go, "Well, why'd you do that?" Well, it might have been all, in good gesture. The senior may have asked for it, to turn in a certain way, but without audio, it might look like physical aggression or something like that. So that'd be another kind of concern. And the final one is just family peace of mind. Speak to this, Brittany, and then we'll look at the 17 states that you're allowed to do this as families and give that information out to the people.
Yeah, I think even if the families don't look at it, it probably is just a peace of mind that it's there. So families that I've worked with love that it's there to the point they don't mind the caregivers being micromanaged. From a family perspective, they're not concerned about the caregivers feeling micromanaged or watched. That's kind of what they usually intend for it to do, is to get some kind of oversight in the room. So I think even if they don't look at it, and I have found that families look at it a lot in the beginning, when they're comfortable, they pull back from it. They're not constantly, probably to your point about your pool guy, maybe the first couple times he came, you're checking him out, seeing what he's doing.
Right.
5, 6 times in, you're not worried about your pool guy. You've built trust. So until the trust is built, I think it really gives them a peace of mind to build the trust. Once the trust is built, we see families pull back on it, and it's there just in case. But I also think a little kind of a side note of positive of this too. I love that some families say it's a way for me to see my loved ones more if they're out of town, if they're around. That's a positive that, the family gets to see more of them, or like say they're really busy with work and they just want to check in to see what mom's doing on a Sunday night after she got done with dinner. She can just see. Even some of them, you can talk through them. So the senior can talk to their family member instead of picking up the phone. So that's some positive stuff that I know is not necessarily for the community, but it could be. I mean, a family member talking to their loved one through a camera might make Mr. Smith the next day be really happy because he talked to his daughter that night and have a better day. So I think there's positives to be found in it.
Yeah, that's golden. And especially the families out of town, they're busy working their own lives. They got kids. They take to travel softball, whatever they're doing, and they mean well. They really want to spend time with their loved one, their mom or dad, and they just can't get over there as often as they would like. Something like this would be golden, I think. That'd be incredible. So before we get into the concerns, let me show you. I was going to show you the 17 states that have laws or official programs permitting residents or their families to install cameras in a nursing home or assisted living under specific conditions. Now, they all have different conditions. The bottom of the page, it talks about these are all subject to change. This is as of April 16th, 2025. If you want to know more specifics, please refer to the bottom for the most current information. You can snapshot this if you like and consult your state-specific resources or legal counsel is recommended. Okay, so this is not legal advice. This is not saying it's always going to be this way. I'm not saying that nothing's going to change. But these are the 17 states that are able to do it. Arizona, Connecticut, Illinois, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Minnesota, Missouri, New Jersey, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, Texas, Utah, Washington. Brittany, I don't see California on that list anywhere. Did I miss it? Is it supposed to be right before Connecticut? Do I need new glasses? Is it not there? God dang it. So we need to get on board with that. And so those are the 17. And again, they all have different laws that will go, and ways these things can be worked. You see there the 4 consent. Usually got to get consent from the resident or, roommates. That'd be another issue, right? If you got cameras and you're in a shared space, having a roommate, notification to the facility prior to installation. So you're going to have to, in some of these states, maybe not all, but you have to notify possibly the community what you're going to do, even though you're able to do it. They'll probably have some guidelines of where you can put the cameras, how you can install them. I mean, if you go and drilling some holes in the wall, you're probably gonna be liable to go back and putty it up and clean up the stuff, right? And all that stuff. Signage indicating surveillance is in use. That's a big one, right? So I know that's all over the place, like with cameras and businesses and things like that you walk into. So that's kind of a deal. Resident or family responsibility for installation and maintenance costs. So those are the 17. But let's get into let's get rid of that thing right there, and let's get into some of the concerns. Brittany, I mean, I hate to leave the video and our time with our audience on a negative. I don't like being as a Debbie Downer. Is that what they call it? I have no idea. But, just 5 concerns. But there are concerns. And like I said at the beginning of this time, and you and I have been talking about it off camera a little bit, I do see both sides of it. As an advocate for seniors, I do see the benefits of it. And I think personally we should lean in that direction more and try to work out those other issues. That's my own personal deal. What is your viewpoint? You watch this video, drop down, put a comment down below what you want to do. But first and foremost is, Brittany, privacy violations, right? I mean, the residents, they might be uncomfortable with this. They're feeling like, where are these cameras pointed? They might be thinking in their mind, do they have a camera in the bathroom? Or if it's in the bedroom, I get it too. But obviously, seniors need to get dressed. I mean, I wouldn't want a camera in my bedroom getting dressed and have it on YouTube, right? I mean, I wouldn't want that kind of thing going on. But speak to that a little bit, some privacy violations that might be a concern for someone.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of seniors in this generation are very private people. They call them the hush generation. So they weren't ones that's usually not comfortable, and they didn't grow up with cameras everywhere. That's a newer thing. Cameras in their lifestyle when they grew up, that was not a thing. So I've heard comments like that. I think it's your home. So we always say assisted living, memory care, independent living, anywhere. We always pitch as placement agents. It's not home, but we're going to make it your home. So having cameras in your home might not necessarily feel very comfortable, might feel like you're violating their privacy. They want to be able to sit in the chair with their, just their briefs on and read a book and, have a cup of coffee. It might not be something that's comfortable to them. Yeah. One thing I did want to point out too, with the privacy stuff, I don't know if you have it as part of the cons, but a huge thing I see in memory care is the anxiety about the camera and the privacy. It creates a sense of anxiety for them. People with dementia and Alzheimer's sometimes have hallucinations, and having a camera in their room can create a lot of anxiety and worried about privacy, and people are watching me and things like that. So I think these need to be really, when they are placed, be very strategic about it. Make sure it's with the right resident. If you have a POA that's making the decision and not the resident, making sure that it's just the right situation, because I think privacy is, whether you have dementia or not, but if you have dementia, I think it really heightens some things and creates kind of an issue for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. You take like Alexa, we got 2 of them, one downstairs, one upstairs. But I was talking to one of our family members the other day. My wife's got a bunch of family in town this week. And they were like, oh man, we would never put that in our house, man. They're watching us, they're recording us and all that stuff. And then somebody ended up telling a story of one of their family members. I don't know who the person's name is. So I wouldn't share it anyway. But what she does is she has a particular family. She's got a camera in her kitchen, and she records all in her kitchen. And then this lady will frequently have parties throughout the year. And so then after the party, and everybody's over there drinking, doing whatever, and they go home, now she knows all the gossip. So she watches the video, and she'll call her family. Did you know so-and-so did this? Did you know what they did? So they're like, how did you know that? So she has a camera. So to your point, I mean, you have to be careful when you're in people's houses, much less when you're in someone's apartment or in the community. And, this could be some private violations, concerns for the community as well. I think of communities and some of their concerns. a cost of installation and maintenance, right? And so if this gets like approved in a certain state and say, yeah, let's say it's a requirement and all this kind of stuff, and they've got 250 apartments, well, you're talking about 250 cameras, and you're talking about all throughout the common areas. And so you might be talking 300 cameras and the installation to set up. And I mean, you're talking literally thousands and thousands of dollars. You could be in probably the ballpark of $20,000 to $50,000 just to set the system up. So there is an expense. And then we know in business when, things go up in terms of whether it be, trade and things like that going on in our world now, and the prices go up for people to make things and manufacture them. Well, the buyers are going to get the brunt of that, right? They're going to be paying more. So the assisted living could go up even more, but that could be an issue too of cost and maintenance. But going back to the legal and compliance risk, I mean, that's a huge thing too. With communities and I get it, right? I get it from the transparency side. This is where I kind of struggle because I get the transparency. I want transparency. I want, residents to be cared for. I don't want any of them to be abused. I don't want any of them to be mistreated. And then I think about the community that a great community could face legal battles and issues and or be shut down because of one bad caregiver, one bad staff member, one bad mistake, something like that of an employee. And I totally get it. I don't know the balance in this, Brittany. I really don't. I mean, I'm putting you on a difficult spot here, but can you shine some light to help me? Is it just a balancing act? I mean, what is it here?
It's hard to say, like we always talk about, there could be one, like you said, one bad apple. And sometimes communities don't know they have a bad apple for a few weeks in, or it could be an amazing, there's just so many factors. I don't know how we balance this. I know you mentioned having something that is like a happy medium, maybe not a full-blown camera system, but maybe something to still give them more oversight and basically all the pros that we talked about today. Is there a way to meet in the middle where it's not going to be a legal and compliance battle? I don't have it in front of me, but I know communities now that I have seen something pretty unique, which might help with this legal and compliance stuff. It's more of not a camera, but a detection. So we've seen that quite a bit going over the beds, and that way they can see, if a resident were to fall out of bed, like they watch kind of like a blob, go off the bed and things. So I don't know if there's a happy medium there to combat this, but even thinking about that out loud, what if the caregiver didn't make it there in time and then a family does still take it to legal? There's so many factors. I don't know. I don't know the answer.
I got an idea. I said an idea right now. Don't know if it'll work, but let's just kind of play along with it. Again, I just thought about it while you were talking. So what if I know the downside of this, because caregivers, everybody's short staffed, right? There's a lot of people don't want to go in this industry because of what happened in COVID. A lot of younger generation just don't want to be in the senior game. And there's a lot of different things, right? But let's say each, and again, this would be taxing on the staff, right? In terms of, more money being paid. But what if you had a system that every time, because I mean, back up a little bit, because a lot of these abusive things don't happen in the common areas, right? Doesn't happen in the dining area, doesn't happen, out in the foyer. It always happens in where? The bedroom, the apartment, behind closed doors, one-on-one. So what if there's a system in place where at the front door, there you have two caregivers or two staff members. They always had to enter in at the same time. So whether it be their fingerprint or just a video kind of deal that who they are, and they both go in with the resident. I think it's less likely for a resident to be abused if there's two people there. I think you see that a lot in hospitals. I think you see it a lot in other places. I know as a former youth director in ministry, anytime that I would have a female come into my office, I'd have another female with me, of an assistant right there with me, to prevent anything. Not saying there would be anything going on, just to, just would raise any suspicions whatsoever, Matt, behind closed doors with a female. Same with this one-on-one, but you have two going in together. So it might just have the camera on the outside or identification of sort with the two people, and then they go in. Now, would that prevent any and all abuse situations? No, but probably less likely, because you're going to have somebody go, hey, whoa, you ain't got to do like that. Hey, I don't know. What do you think of that wild idea I just had? Is that a good idea or a bad idea?
I agree. If we could get the communities to double the staffing, but no,
the community's like, no, man.
Yes, no. I've read reports, from the state complaints and stuff, and I read one not too long ago, and it was exactly that. I mean, there actually was 2 caregivers involved, and what had happened is the abuse did happen. Well, the abuse happened with 2 caregivers in the same room, but the caregiver that obviously was not performing the abuse reported it immediately. So did it prevent it? No. Did it get reported immediately? Yes. So I don't know if it prevent it completely, like you said, but then there's 2 people. If that caregiver from the comments was just like, whoa, this is not okay, I got to go report it, the lady was walked out immediately. So that will never happen again. So I think it will prevent some, but it will also prevent it from happening again with 2 people.
Man, love it. Okay, let's go to number 4. Staff morale and turnover. We talked a little bit about that earlier, but I think if we go down this road, this will probably be a community concern that it may hamper a little bit of the recruitment and retention of employees. It's just like if they got to tell them, say, hey, we got cameras all over the place. We're monitoring your work. We're monitoring what's going on in our community. There might be some that would go, hey, I feel like not only being micromanaged, but I'm being set up. Or if I make the slightest mistake, there's going to be no grace involved. I'm just going to be dismissed. They've got it documented, all that stuff. But what do you think about that? You think that would hurt staff morale and turnover if there were cameras put in the building?
I think it could definitely affect it. I think the community would have to do the work to make sure that they're transparent about why they're there and work with the caregivers and let them know that we're human. We all make mistakes, but we're here to avoid large mistakes and things. So I think the approach on this will be everything. I also think if it becomes a standard in the industry where everybody's using them, it will probably be a shock at first, but become the normal eventually. I think it would have to be across the board, though. If not, they'll jump from this assisted living down the street where they don't have them. So,
yeah, definitely. And then the last one, Brittany, is maybe a false sense of security. Maybe it's just cameras don't catch everything. We mentioned earlier, if you don't have audio, that could be out of context. And there's nothing that's going to substitute good observation and good caregiving from the personal touch. And so I think just as like cameras around my house provide some sense of security, I guess, if somebody intrudes the property or whatever and the alarms go off and all that stuff, I think it could help. I just think we need to have a good system that really puts peace of mind with the families and puts peace of mind with the communities, because if you don't have that, it's going to be tough. And if you make it tougher on the communities to operate profitably and operate without always being, accused of things and taking them to court. And if it's looked at a big negative, that's going to create a huge gap for the upcoming seniors that need to be cared for, right? We talk about all the time, by 2030, all the baby boomers will be 65. Not they're all going to need assisted living, but they're going to need it there soon after, right? And so we don't want that, but we don't want the family to be constantly worried about their loved one, right? And hearing stories or going to their apartment and seeing a bruise, and did mom fall down, or was the caregiver a little more aggressive than he or she needed to be, and things like that. So we don't want to provide some kind of false sense of security, but I think if we have some good things in place, some good measures and some protocols and things like that, I think would help out. So yeah, it's a tough topic, Brittany. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. If you watch this long, drop down and put a comment down below. What's your viewpoint on this in terms of, should there be more cameras in the community, more transparency? But what's some of the backlash? Maybe you're an executive director, maybe you work in a community and you see the other side of it too. It's tough. It's not an easy topic. That's why it's a hot topic right now. If it was easy, it ought to be resolved. But that's why states are, litigating certain things, getting some laws, getting some things in place, and being a little more proactive. I think some other states, in my own opinion, are probably just watching right now, kind of seeing how some of those things play out. And then they go, okay, we can do that, and kind of let the other states do the work. That's kind of the way, policy gets done sometimes in our country, right? Some states will just be gung-ho about something. The others are kind of go, okay, well, let me see how things pan out over there and see if it's worth this fight, And so, but I'm hoping California will allow families to put a camera. I think if nothing else, Brittany, like we talked about earlier, it's just the communication. I think about that. I mean, obviously the lack of abuse and the transparency and all that stuff, but I think the communication with, you know, if my dad or my mom was in the community, and you know, I'm 2,500 miles away from them, so that would be awesome to be able to have. Now, I would have them out here probably at that point, but let's just say they stayed there. You know, I could communicate with them on a regular basis, versus, you know, just wondering what's going on and all that kind of stuff. So, hey, we hope you enjoyed today's video. We're so glad you were here with us. And again, if you want to know more about what we do, just drop down, click one of the links and all of those stuff down below. I think there's a podcast down there. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. And Brittany and I just love this industry. We love helping people. We've got a good community, some solid students throughout the country. Man, I can't believe, Brittany, we've had the Senior Home Business, used to be called the Senior Referral Academy, since 2019, and to where it is today. And it's just amazing to see the development of students. And we need more students, right? We need more people. So, you know, I'm making a plea for you guys, not just to buy a course and buy coaching, but just, man, get in the industry. And if you need some help, need some guidance, we're here to help you out. So until next time, God bless.